Talk shoes. Recorded live.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you are listening to the VMware Communities Roundtable podcast. This is podcast number 554. My name is Eric Nelson. With me today, I have my regular co-host, Matt Lungeth. Today is Thursday, May 5th. Wow, it's already May 5th. Matt, how you doing?
Well, Eric, happy Cinco de Mayo. And a little bit, I have to say, of an anniversary of sorts. So May 6th of last year was my first co-hosting duty, if you can believe it or not. You were actually, I still think, back in the studio at Palo Alto, and we had John Furrier on as a guest. And 40 some odd episodes later, we're still here, we're still together, and I appreciate the opportunity immensely and wish to continue on if you'll still have me. So amazing to think that all of those episodes that we've accomplished in a year.
It is it's been a crazy year given that we were all had to go remote. And I think I was in 3 different places in my house. I was in my living room for a while. Then I moved into the garage for a while and did garage for quite a while, right? With the backdrop of the garage still. I put a code banner up, and then eventually I did my upstairs room. And now here I sit upstairs in the happy, warm environment that I have upstairs in my house. So it's been a crazy year. On the show today, we're going to be talking about VMware Tanzu basic customization. We have Daniele Ulrich. I don't know how to say his last name. He'll correct me, but he is Senior Cloud Architect for Swisscom, and he's done a couple of great blog articles on customization of Kubernetes and Tanzu. So we're going to have him on the show. Daniele, welcome to the show. Just say hello, then we'll get to the news and then flip back to you. How you doing?
Thanks, I'm very good. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, great. And I think it's Daniele. How do you say your full name?
Daniele Ulrich.
Daniele Ulrich.
Daniele Ulrich.
All right. Great. Okay, but on to the news before we get to the show. So the news for today is not very much. Obviously, VMworld call for papers is still open, going to be open until May 14th. So you can still get your papers in. We'll be recording and live streaming. I think we got confirmation that we are going to have a community booth that will be a 24 hours open booth that will have chat and live ability, so everybody can just come in, hang out, say hello to each other. I think we can go up to 1,000 people in this booth for the VMworld. So with VMworld, we'll have a community booth this year, not like last year where we didn't really have that. This year we will be. We'll have chat and live camera views open all day, every day, I think for 2.5, 3 days during the event. Speaker notifications. If you get your papers in, you'll be notified June 21st, and VMworld 2021 October 5th through the 7th. So mark your calendars and think of some ideas for some cool papers. Announcements. Workspace event is happening today. Anywhere Workspace, May 5th through 6th. 6th is in Europe. May 5th today, I think already happened this morning, 11 o'clock. But you can go listen to that live stream, doing some announcements across Workspace, the products, Anywhere Workspace. I think they're bundling and adding features to security with Carbon Black integration, some cool stuff there. We did a podcast, 554X, talks all about that. Go listen to that. It's one we did last Friday. So that's what we have. Matt, don't know if there's any other news worth mentioning, or should we get on with the show?
There is, I believe, a few available slots that are still out there for a vExpert acknowledgement gift that Cohesity is giving away. So check out there on your socials with the vExpert and Cohesity hashtag. I know that they're doing a really nice gift and an acknowledgement for vExperts this year. So jump in on that. I would think that there should be some strong interest. If you're listening now, you might want to just make it the first thing that you do, because I know it's a limited availability. Other than that, sir, let's get right into it.
Right. And with that, Dan, why don't we talk first about who you are? What's your career ecosystem? What does your arc look like? What have you been doing in the ecosystem for VMware? What have you done throughout your career? Give us the couple-minute elevator pitch, who you are and where you work and what do you do?
Okay. So I'm 58 years old, and I started as a commercial clerk. So I was not very ambitious in my youth. But then in 91, it's 30 years ago, I changed into IT, into IT profession. And I started with COBOL first, and then with Smalltalk, and changed to Java, J2EE. I did the School of Applied Science in Bern. I get the bachelor there, get some professional background, some formation. And then I worked for major companies in Switzerland, like the train company, SBB is called, where we did some web shops. I did some, let's say, technical lead for a first big agile project. Then I was working for nearly 12 years as a freelancer. And because I wanted to participate in a big cloud project, I got a permanent contract with Swisscom. This is 6 years ago. And there, my first duty was to be a lead architect for a private virtual cloud. First attempt was to build everything on our own, but this we didn't reach the goal. And then we switched to get some help from Dell EMC and VMware. So we had vRelay Automation 7 as the base on vSphere, where we built the enterprise service cloud. This is the offering of Swisscom for enterprise customers. So our target are the 500 biggest enterprises in Switzerland, and they wanted to have EOS mainly, and we built that, and it was quite it's a private cloud. It was.
I have
Yep.
one throwback comment before we continue on. You said COBOL, and I think you in my career, I think I'm 59. So when you got exposed to COBOL, I used punch cards on IBM mainframes. I'm curious what you actually wrote your COBOL in.
No, that was over. 91, you didn't use punch cards. I hope.
Well, COBOL's been around a long time, so I guess
sure.
I think I started writing COBOL in maybe 80. I want to say 82. I was still on IBM mainframes with punch cards because the CRTs were just coming out. So there stacks of COBOL code. All right. So you've been in the IT world for quite a while now, and now you're at Swisscom, and you got to experience the developing a vSphere Enterprise Service Cloud, right, based on vSphere Service Cloud, and that's got you in, and that I assume up until maybe a year or two ago was happily what you were doing. How did you find yourself getting into this new topic?
Yeah, it's clear. So Kubernetes came up and was requested on the market, and then we did an evaluation how we could offer our customers a managed Kubernetes service, and we had a look at PKS. It was called, or the vanilla CNF installation, or OpenShift. And then we decided to go with PKS. So today it's called TKG integrated, the integrated edition. So then we built up this offering, and that was just around when we did the evaluation was done. I changed my position because now for me this was a phase was ended, was successfully ended, and I looked for. I want to stay on touch with the latest developments in IT. This is very interesting for me and very important. And so I love to do prototyping with the newest stuff and to do conceptual work alongside that to find out where we are heading with this industry. And then I was working for a major health project in Switzerland, the electronic patient record. This is an industry standard on health that where you can exchange the patient's data, and this was finished beginning of this year. And now I'm working on other very interesting projects in the banking sector, and also for the government with Kubernetes as well. So finally, I had a small customer of ours that wanted to have a concept for Tanzu Basic. So they want to didn't want to use NSXT. They want to rely solely on the vSphere networking. So it's a small company, and that was the moment where I finally could get my hands on Tanzu. I heard a lot of, I saw a lot of sessions, but now I had the chance to get into the topic.
There is always this difference between what you hear and then your first project, where you actually have to go through and start building it, especially if you have a customer. So that's actually interesting to get someone that actually has a customer that's actually looking to solve a problem. You also blog about this. It looks like you've been blogging this year, and I should do a shout out to your blog, vdan.niceandeasy.ch, right? Is that that's your blog?
Yes, and there is another URL as well, ICTS Swisscom, where you can find all the blogs, so all that stuff that we had. What I was working through, the evaluation with PKS and so on. I did also very interesting articles also in regards to vRealize automation. But now I'm quite happy to change side and go to the all cloud native story, because I think this is the future, and this is very important to stay.
Yeah, you have a blog article on it looks like getting TKG extensions going, basic installing of that, then customization, and then a second customization. So, and then you do have a link to the ICT Swisscom blog as well. So if you go to vdan.niceandeasy.ch, you're well on your way to see what we're talking about here.
Yes. So basically, this series of VMware Tanzu Basic I did for our customers. So it was let's say a POC that I checked out what they wanted, and I had some hands-on experience, and I installed everything on my home lab. So I was, I didn't have to ask anybody, because in Swisscom this is a big company. If you need to have the root password of a vCenter, you get mad. So I did it all on my home lab, because it was for a small company, and so the journey started. And I hope when it should go in a month or two, I should be able to do that for the customer. And then I want to go further with NSXT and multi-cloud stuff that is offered by Tanzu, or the whole SaaS offering for the control, the observability, and so on. I'm not finally there, but I will start at the beginning. The small. But.
So looking at your, go ahead, Matt.
So what you, Daniel? Obviously, the customer requirements were out there for the POC. So you're trying to customize the basic instance. What were you trying to customize to? What were the requirements that the customer was laying down for this particular instance?
This was a limitation in the first versions, If you are creating Docker registries and you want to have TLS, so you're creating mostly self-signed certificates, and if you are not able to register these certificates in the Kubernetes cluster, you always get in trouble if you want to fetch Docker images via Kubernetes. And this was simply a feature that was not there. It was missing. It was promised by the product managers. So I had some chats with them in the vExpert channel, and there was a special session on that as well. And it was promised that this will come, and now finally with vSphere 7 update 2, it arrived. So it is possible to configure that in the TKG service extension, service configuration. There is a new CRD where you can add your certificates, and they are automatically populated to all nodes. So all these Ubuntu nodes will have this CAs integrated in their OS, so that you have a new certificate authority that is accepted from the OS. And that's why I was looking around, how can I do that? How can I register certificates in these Ubuntu VMs? Because if you are looking on the vSphere implementation, you don't have any control. You can't start, stop, you can't change the VMs on vSphere level. But then I found out, following the blogs of William Lamb, that there is a Python function that gives you the password of the supervisor cluster. And then you can enter these VMs as a root. And then you can check what is there. So you can read more secrets. So you can also get some the secrets of the guest clusters and workload clusters, and so you can do it manually. But this is quite cumbersome. If you have to do 6 or 7 nodes everywhere, you have to put the certificate and re-updating it. So you are looking for something that is doing this automatically. And
if you have those free certs, the free 90-day certs, and you're trying to do cert rotation in your home lab, this could get a little cumbersome with the amount of worker nodes you have.
Yes,
sure.
If you have to exchange them, this is the next problem. When they are expired, you have to change them. Yes, that's what I was looking for, because if I'm recommending something to our customers, I'm always telling the truth. So if there are limitations, if there are some things that we have to find workarounds, then I declare it correctly. And but this time I was very happy, because they kept the promise, the product managers, and finally now we have a solution. So you see in the second part of my customizing blog, I explicitly tell the people, don't do that, what I did, because it's not needed anymore.
So tell me a little bit about how so obviously you're a vExpert.
Yeah.
And you're using the vExpert Slack once you stumble across this problem. How did you reach out to the PM? How did you use that capability that we give out to vExperts?
This was an invitation on the Slack channel from Keith. He asked who would be interested to have a chat with the product managers, and I was first in line. And then I could ask that stuff, and this was then promised.
So a feature integration that you ran across from a customer, and then you had noticed out on the vExpert Slack, I'm sure one of the Tanzu sub channels, and that there was an invite out there to meet with the PMs.
Yes.
You let the PM know about this particular issue, and then in short order, it's rolled up into 7.0 U2. It's amazing.
Yeah, there were a lot of other customers that had the same problem. So this was a known problem. I think a lot of people had, because if you have these Tanzu extensions, TKG extension, there is a Harbor Docker registry. as a sample application. If you are running this on the vSphere side, then you run in this problem, because you will have, you won't have a correct certificate. You don't pay the price for it, and it's not so easy to have it like with Let's Encrypt or something like that. So you run in this problem, and and there was a lot of feedback on this issue, and this was pressing, and it was solved. So and throughout my career, I'm working now, let's say 5 years very close with VMware. So I'm participating in the design partner programs to shape vRealize automation. So, and my experience is that you are very collaborative and responsive. You reach out to the customer, and it's possible to shape the product. Okay, for Swisscom it was not so easy, because we had special requirements, because we were service provider. And as a service provider, you have a completely different understanding, let's say, what multi-tenancy means, because you are like a reseller. So that's a completely different beast than to have it multi-tenancy within an enterprise. But even if this was not the highest priority for VMware, we managed to work around these problems, and to make solutions that were good for both sides. So I think that's the art in my job. So to find compromises that fits on both sides, because you always hit limitations, and then you have to go forward somehow, and to find ways how to improve and plan over time. So migration paths to the final goal. And for me, VMware was a very, very good partner, reliable partner.
Was there any other customizations that you needed to do outside of the security certificate rotations for the basic edition?
What I did then, this is not caused by limitation, but because I had the opportunity to enter this supervisor cluster, I wrote a Spring Boot application that is basically using the watch API of Kubernetes and checking if Istio does a new gateway declaration. So it's having a watch on the Istio gateway, and then it's reading every object that gets into the system, reading out the host name of this gateway, and putting creating DNS entries for these host names. So I have integration with the Active Directory DNS. So this is quite, let's say, not the usual thing that you do when you are working with Kubernetes. So I had to do some remote PowerShell commands to create all these DNS entries. So this is
so if it spun up new management nodes, or it spun up new worker nodes, it would automatically pre-prop your AD DNS?
Yes. So it's in the supervisor cluster, an application that knows because if you are in the supervisor cluster, you see every cluster that is created in the so you can see these CRDs, these namespaces that are created. So everything that you see in vSphere is a namespace in the supervisor cluster, and with this knowledge, you can completely control what is happening. So you have also kube config and all that stuff you have in the supervisor cluster. So you can automatically, without configuring anything, passwords, so you can get the secrets out of the supervisor cluster and connect to every cluster that is created and control that. And I've built that for Contour, ingress controller that is coming with TKG extensions, and for Istio, for the Istio ingress controller. So these are two different CRDs that are doing basically the same. So it's the routing. You have one IP for the ingress, and then you are routing based on the host header. And this host header, I go and read this host header in the configuration and create DNS entries on Microsoft Active Directory. This is linked in the blog, so you will find it in have a Git repository. It's free. You can check it out. But this is more a prototype, so let's say 80%. Yeah.
Well, that's where it all starts, right? And it's public and it's out there, and pull requests to come and improvements to be made.
Exactly.
That's actually an interesting comment. I'm looking at the blog. Where do you list the Git repository? I'm trying to find where that.
In the customizing, you should find
In the customizing 0 or
management component. Check out the code from GitHub. Do you see it?
All right, I'll take a look. Management component. There it is. All right. Yep, right there. Okay. Management component. Thank you for doing that right there. There's nothing better than getting somebody else's code and taking a look at how somebody did it, without, even if it is just your first pass.
Yeah. Eric, what is the URL to his Git repo?
GitHub.com/blue BOSS
63.
Yeah.
That's my age. So my Jahrgang. How do you say this in English? The year I was born.
1963. Got it. Right. Blue BOSA. That makes sense because I was born in 62 and you're 1 year younger than I.
Okay. So checked.
Nice. Right. So Blue BOSA 63 at GitHub. You can go check out his code. And the Tanzu Customizer is the name of the project he has in there that you can check it out. So, projects there as well. Yeah, you have 2 or 3 different projects in there. So cool. All right. So this has all been just in your own home lab, right? Getting ready for this. And you'd mentioned that you're going to go back to the customers sometime in the next couple of months once something happens. Right, question for you, like when the customer is deciding how much of the requirements come from the customer's developers, and do you actually interact with the customer developers, or does the customer just explain what they're looking for? I was just wondering, like, when you as an IT practitioner are engaging in these topics, how much of these are driven by developers versus...
Very good question. Very good question. So currently my role is more like a success architect, so customer success architect. And with big companies, I always have the deciders, and I'm not really the developers. I have to reach out to talk to the developers. But in this case, luckily, these are 3 persons, so management and 2 developers that I have direct contact, and so I'm quite sure that I can meet the requirements of the developers, because from time to time it's really very theoretically what the management level is dreaming about. So it's all this hype thing of agile, and it doesn't cost anything, and it goes quick, and multi-cloud is also this. They don't think about the whole connectivity between on-prem and so this is always, there are a lot of illusions that destroy the business case. So if you are telling them what this really costs and what this means in operating and securing it, this is a very theoretical discussion. And then you have the problem that on the developer side, it's completely opposite, because they have their stuff, and if you come with such a plan, but how much does this take? Where do you get this army to build all that stuff? And then you have the other side where you have to motivate people to go this route somehow. So this was one of the biggest problems that we had when we changed from the first try for the enterprise service cloud. So we had worked 2 years, and all the developers had their babies, their own project, their code. That is good code. I'm the father of that stuff. And then somebody from the management comes and say, okay, stop, throw it all away.
You're going to rewrite it all in microservices, and you get to.
Yes.
And oh, by the way, there's new developers, so they're going to do that, not you.
Yes. Nowadays we didn't have a lot of fluctuation, but they had to change their favorite language, programming language, favorite tools. So if you know how it is to code with VRO, for somebody who is doing, let's say, Java or Python, this is quite a challenge.
Yes.
To keep the people motivated. I think that's the soft skill part here that is very important.
I wonder if because these guys are also used to deploying on top of vSphere, and maybe they don't even know how it gets deployed, but at least if you're actually providing infrastructure on top of vSphere that, they would now do microservices, there might be some level of confidence or less risk management of, one, I have to rewrite all my code and then I have to deploy it on something that is completely different. If you're building it on top of Tanzu, at least the base infrastructure is still the same.
Yeah, sure. And now the new service, the VM virtual machine service, is a very interesting approach to that. So this is a byproduct of this supervisor cluster who can create new VMs. Now you can create YAMLs to define your VMs together with the cloud init code. So this is really perfect. So it's an inversion now. So you are creating VMs out of the Kubernetes cluster and not the other way. And that's quite interesting for CI/CD, HR processes. That's the next part I want to play with. Unfortunately, my home lab broke totally down. I had to do a reinstall, but I hope that I can get my hands dirty in the next days.
There's always that, right? Like there's always something to fix and always something to build. What is your general impression of how smooth Tanzu behaved for you? I mean, you've used vSphere for a lot of years. What grade would you give VMware from a standpoint of having an infrastructure that delivers Kubernetes?
So I have the impression that it is very mature. So when I had a lot of problems, but I caused them by myself because I was learning, I was trying things out. So my home lab is consisting of 4 Intel NUCs, so these little boxes.
Sure.
And it's not very stable network-wise. So the second NIC is a USB adapter and so on. I had a lot of stories around that, and I did not completely re-architecture my network, my home network. So I had to do some creative stuff. So it was mostly my part. So it was mostly a problem within networking.
That's
so,
a good
for me, it was very stable. I must say, even if it crashes, it is stable. So you can remove it even if there are network problems or so. That's my experience now on my home lab.
So would you recommend somebody that was going to get into this to stop and re-architect kind of your home environment before you jump into Tanzu?
Yes, this makes sense because my home network is a normal 192.168/24 network, and this is my public network. And there I have my ESXi host and everything, the whole management stuff. And because Tanzu needs a second network, I had to deploy pfSense and to create artificially a second network to do that. So you have more troubles if you don't have a proper network setup where you have a clear management network that is not directly attached to the internet or something like that. I had to actually invert some settings of the HA proxy so that the published the load balancer IPs were in front and reachable in the public internet and so on. So that's the reason why I had some problems. And yes, because you need to have two networks, it's very interesting if you have a good ground for building that out.
Yeah, I think that
you have even 3 networks with the HA proxy. So I use the HA proxy solution for load balancing. Now there is the AVI also available, but with the HA proxy you can have even 3 networks. So the VIPs of the load balancer are on a third network if you want. But then you need to have a networking in place that is supporting, let's say, if you have VLAN capabilities or something. But if you don't have this, then yeah, you have to manage around it.
from a memory utilization and your NUCs, you say I had 4 NUCs. You have enough memory to run Tanzu and have everything.
Yes, I followed again the blog from William Lamb, and he told us, hey, you can put 64 gigs in a NUC. It was not in the specification, but then I tried it out, and now I have a quarter of a tera RAM with 4 CPUs and 2 tera SSD disk vSAN. So it's quite comfortable like that.
How much memory in each NUC did you see?
In the NUC I have 64 gig RAM and what is it? 1 tera SSD.
Okay, all right. So 1 terabyte SSD and 64 gig.
But again, William Lamb is building on has a setup where you can run it on a minimized home lab environment. But this was not my aim to save every bit that is possible. We did that in '91 with COBOL and with this 360, 86 PCs and 64 mega RAM in the computer. This is old days. I don't want to have this.
It's funny because I guess this just shows that I'm not paying attention, because like 4 years ago I got a micro D server. It had 64 gig of memory and a terabyte SSD, so I thought I was in great shape, right? Pretty fast. And then William Lamb came out and go, well, if you really work hard, you can get Tanzu to run in 64 gig. And I'm like, wait. Yeah. I thought I was in great shape here. So you do have to think about your hardware when you're going into this, because the hardware requirements, if you've had your old hardware for the last 5 years and you haven't really paid attention, you could find yourself wishing that you had done some upgrade before you tackle this.
If you have this control plane up and running, then you want to create clusters, not one with only 2 nodes. You want to have clusters.
We hear that time and time again that the limiting factor for the home labs, it's not CPU contention, it's really not even sometimes the network, it's RAM.
Yeah,
it's the RAM limitations of what you can put in these NUCs.
Even when you are running with vSAN, then it's extremely. So if you have the deduplication and so on, this takes a quarter of the RAM. Takes it before you start. That's the reason I upgraded to 64 gig. But for the smaller device, Eric, you were giving this course in 2019 in Barcelona with Raspberry Pi.
Yeah,
I think we met there. Because you give me the starting point. You have to check. I have 2 blocks with ESXi on Raspberry Pi. I did some experiments. So you gave me there the starting point. Yeah, this was.
Yeah, we're always hacking on something. We're trying to do something again with for VMworld this year, where we'll have a new ESXi with on Raspberry Pi, do some Raspberry Pi 4 stuff. So it's cool. But right, I came from that where you could run Kubernetes on these small Raspberry Pi, 1 gigabyte, and all of a sudden Tanzu, they're talking 64 is a minimum, and you probably should have really 128 gig. And I'm like, wow, okay, but that's just that's where enterprise comes in, right? And if you really try to run anything on a Raspberry Pi, you wouldn't get very far, right? Like it's small things.
Understanding the workload limitations, right? We're going to see, I think, more of those containerized applications, but on ARM, right? For edge pooling and edge devices, so that it's just going to be, we have to size the containers and the control plane and whatnot for the limitations of those edge devices.
Could be.
The other thing is that Tanzu, really, when you're dealing with developers and big architectures that will run microservice apps across many nodes, it's a big thing to begin with, right? So it's not like just putting vSphere on and having some VMs, right? This is like an enterprise class thing, and so you really do have to look at like, well, what would you normally put in a rack on an enterprise? Well, you'd put like a Dell with 128 cores running, or some bigger piece of hardware with tons of memory. So in a sense, it doesn't really. We're trying to do enterprise stuff in a home lab, right? Which is kind of neat, but if you really want to make it all work in the network and building the fabric and having it all there, you need enough horsepower to make that happen.
In some ways, you need to duplicate what the enterprise environment is. It's just that cost-benefit analysis and the partner approval for the spend to do so.
Right.
Yeah, but you can have quite a lot of capacity in these small form factors already today. But for me, it's more the question how you distribute these workloads. What is running where? So what are you doing with IoT devices? It's only a sensor, and when you have a far edge, what is this doing? Is it this pre-aggregating, filtering? And so where you are placing what kind of functionality, this is very interesting. So you can check it out in my blog. That was exactly my POC I did. So I built something that was running on the Raspberry Pi, where I have 3 potentiometers where I can choose the color. So this was one of the samples. That is, you can red, green, blue. You can mix up a color LED, and then I send these values to the far edge, and from there I send it to the far edge was the ESXi on ARM, and then to a VM on my home lab. And from there, I send it out to the cloud, on Google Cloud, and you could open it in the browser over a public internet. So that's what I try to find out. How does it feel, and what does make sense to put it where, and with which capacity? So I don't think that it's really needed to have Kubernetes clusters on the Raspberry Pi. So if you have 2 gig of RAM, then you're better off with simple Python scripts. And if you have the bigger model, the 4 Model 4 with 8 gig of RAM, then you can do other stuff. But then you need also other devices. So these SSD cards, we should be able to put them in the Raspberry Pi. So you have to adapt also the hardware if this is needed.
Cool. Yep, like it. So, so you talked about what was next, right? Like, because you have your blog articles here, the kind of getting started customization. Good to go. Check that out. Again, I'll just do vdan at niceandeasy.ch. Go check that out. You mentioned, your next blog article, I think looking at network fabric and, what you've had to configure. What are some of the things that excite you as you go forward?
Yeah, for me, I do it again for my customer. I do introduction into Istio. So monitoring, Grafana, Prometheus, and Istio. Then with Kiali, network tracing, all that stuff that is very interesting. And I plan to come up with a, let's say, 4-part series on this stuff with concrete samples that you can run easily on Tanzu Basic. One of the problems I faced with the first series was that there was a pod security policy already installed, and a lot of people had some problem with that. So because the TKG extension samples didn't come with the service accounts and cluster roles needed to run on these pod security policies. That was something that was not really perfect. I don't know if this runs on the normal Kubernetes grid, but in the vSphere installation it was hardened already. So you need to take care about these pod security policies. So for me, the topic will be Istio with network policies and monitoring how you can trigger alerts and all that stuff that is of value for my customer.
What have you seen, or what are you recommending right now for workload monitoring, or the workload cluster monitoring? Are you using open source tools? Have you gone down the line of the Tanzu management fact for VROPs? In this particular instance with Tanzu Basic, what would you recommend out to the customer to monitor those workload domains?
Actually, what is there in the TKG extensions? So this is Prometheus and Grafana. This is the de facto standard on open source for Kubernetes. Together maybe with Elk, but Elk you have to pay if it's getting bigger with Elasticsearch. But Prometheus, I think, is a very good time series database tooling that is very, very flexible, and actually we are really even replacing VROPs in some parts. Let's say the Prometheus node exporter is a very handy tool where you can measure all the CPU and memory and disk space, all that technical stuff from a VM perspective. That is all built in, and you don't have to bother a lot on getting these metrics and to create nice diagrams. So if you don't want, if you need to have your costs under control, if you don't have a big budget, then this will be the way to go. And honestly, I didn't have a lot of contact with that stuff that VMware is proposing for Tanzu. One of the problems that we have with it is that it is a SaaS offering, and we have a lot of customers, especially health and banking area, that are very hesitant to use cloud offerings. So if this would be monitored out of the cloud, this would be a no-go. And so we need to have some on-prem solutions, and that's the reason why we are tending in this direction, that we are directly using Prometheus and Grafana.
Sure. It really just depends on what they have as their source of truth for their monitoring solution, right? If they're already on VROPs and they see integrations from there, but they could be using Grafana or another open source deployment that's monitoring their whole entire stack, why bring another element into the mix? If it's there, let's just plug this in and roll with it and have another dashboard.
Yeah, I don't know how far the integration of VROPs is already in Kubernetes. I didn't touch this topic. But what Prometheus has a very, very interesting feature that you can put annotations on a pod where your metrics URL and port is, and then this is a standard format. So you have a zero configuration solution. So you can create a new application as long as they use these annotations. They are automatically picked from Prometheus, and the metrics are fed. So you don't have to do anything except putting this annotations. And I think this is a very elegant feature. And I don't know if VROps has an agent on Kubernetes who could do the same thing, but this would be very interesting. So
the Tanzu management pack for VROPS
with,
is I know that it has just been released with some iterations and whatnot. I have not got to play around with it myself, but it is top of mind, and I know that there is demos and whatnot that the BU is really pushing it as obviously as a solution for these pods to be monitored within VROPS.
Yeah, I think VROPS has to enter the Kubernetes cluster directly. It's not possible to do it from the outside, because you are forced to publish all these health endpoints, these metrics, and this is a mess. This is completely a mess. So it has to be within the container network. And I think that this is solvable with an agent that is picking up that stuff and sending it then to VROPS, like FluentD does it with log files. So the FluentD is reading all the log files and sending it to a syslog server or to any other destination. And VROPS also has now an integration for Prometheus data, so they go also the other way around. So they are integrating this feed. This is a good idea, because this would be a natural fit. You don't have to do efforts on this side when you have an open source solution that is already sending you that data. That's are interesting possibilities how to design this product.
All right. Well, we're coming up on the last few minutes of the podcast here. The hour goes by pretty quickly. One question I have for you, Dan, is obviously we're all coming out of COVID now. Do you ever get to engage with your customers, or are you still pinned at home? And what are you doing with Swiss? I want to say Telecom, but I don't think it's Swiss Telecom. Are you still doing work there, and do you get to engage? And what does the rest of your 2021 look like? Given that I think you're in Europe and in Switzerland. It looks like it's dark out there in the windows. And if you guys haven't seen, you can come check out Dan at youtube.com/vbarbecue. Go check that out. You can see what Dan looks like. So if you run into him at VMworld, and I know we're not doing a physical VMware, so what does the rest of your year look like? Do you get to go outside at all in Switzerland?
Yeah, so our COVID situation is like that we had a third wave that hit us quite hard from October, and Switzerland was always very liberal, so we didn't have a real lockdown with where you can't go out in the night or something like that. But since October we have we must stay in the home office if it's possible. So for IT nerds like us, it's always possible to do remote sessions. So my life is I'm hanging at home on the couch or on the desk and I'm working. For me, it's fine. The problem is the additional pounds that I get when I have to force me to do more sports and more movement. But the situation is now this, that the vaccination is now increasing. So we get Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna stuff. So I got my first shot on Monday, and at the end of the month I will get the second one. So my wife has already got it. And then I have a son, a 14-year-old, They are testing 3 times a week, and I hope he can get this. There is a new development with this 12 years upwards.
Yeah, they announced
possible.
that
Yeah,
here.
I
Yeah,
hope this is possible to do that, because I will have a sabbatical. So July and August, I would have free time, and I'd like to have some normalcy, some normal summer feeling. This would be nice, and yeah, I have to
Well,
lose some weight.
I gotta say that I am now fully vaxxed, and I've been fully vaxxed for now 4 weeks, so enough to get out. And I have gotten out, and I'm kind of mixed, disappointed, confused, because things that I used to think would be fun or I enjoy doing, I went and tried some of them, and I didn't think they were fun anymore. Right, so now I'm stuck at home wondering what is my new definition of fun,
Yes.
because.
Yes.
Driving around, sitting at stoplights, I'm like, I can't believe I ever did this. Right? Like, why would I ever do this again? Right? Like, and then I'm buying coffee at Pete's. Like, they charged me $7, and the coffee wasn't as good as now what we make at home. So I'm like, there is some new transition that's going to happen, right? Where we all start going back, and we're going to realize the life we were dreaming about while we were sequestered at home wasn't as good as we thought, right? So it'd be interesting.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly the point.
Yeah,
and
I think
it is here to stay. I think this home office thing, I think it's really great. So I love to do home office, and I love to have good meetings with people directly face to face, but not so much as we had before, because not every meeting is really valuable. So now you can pick the occasions a little bit, carefully. And yeah.
And Matt, to your point, when we were talking about the podcast last year when you started, I can't believe it has been a year, but we didn't have this live stream. Now we use StreamYard, right? And we certainly, only had podcast guests that would mostly come to the studio, right? And yeah, we would dial in now and then, but it was always, now we use StreamYard, and this is the new normal, and this actually works really well. And I wouldn't have to go back. The old Julia camera views where we had hard cameras pointing at people. So everything has shifted, and I just don't think we've realized how much good happened in this shift.
Yeah, to bring it full circle, requirements change, right?
Yeah, in the end, the product of a podcast is one screen. So there is no difference if you have 3 cameras in one.
None whatsoever. In fact, now we have guests from Europe regularly, right? Like we have from Asia,
quite regularly. I think for the last string of guests have been mostly through Europe and APJ, which is fantastic. Where we wouldn't have normally had those guests and been available.
I didn't know these guys stayed alive when we left from Europe from VMworld. I thought they all went back and hibernated for another year, and then we'd come back and they'd wait back up. We'd sprinkle water on them and they would freshen up. And I had no idea that they were working the whole year. So.
On-demand V-experts. I mean, it's just
on-demand.
So you see, it's dark.
I see that.
10 p.m. So I think, we have talked an hour.
Yes, it is at the top of the hour. So I have one final question for you, which is, we've already got your Twitter handle up here. It is Daniele Ulrich, Daniele, Daniele Ulrich, Ulrich. And that's not how he said it.
I think this is case sensitive for the Twitter handle, so you have to.
No. Case doesn't matter on Twitter, I don't think.
Okay,
so
cool.
You're good to go there. We, at the end of the show, thank you for people that listened all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Question for you, Dan. Do you ever do any barbecue in Europe?
Sure. I'm waiting for it. So springtime started, but currently it's rather cold. We have some Arctic winds, and we have it's very chilly outside. But I think in the next 2-3 days the weather will change, and then the season starts.
What's your favorite barbecue?
Oh, eat everything.
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 You sound like Julia Klaus from Brazil. She's always like, oh, the Brazilian, they just like everything. They make a giant meat platter. There's
Yeah.
nothing they don't like, right? I made corn this weekend. So it turns out you can go to Costco here in the US and they have shucked corn. It looks like lousy, but it's actually just in Costco. They have corn packets and you can get like ears of corn. And from what I've been told from other people, the Costco corn is really quite good. Some of the better corn that you can get. So we tried some, put it on the barbecue and charred it, right? It was simple because it's already cleaned and husked. And we just put it on the grill and I was careful because there's no husk. So it'll burn pretty easily. So you have to kind of watch it and turn it every minute or so just to keep it, going. And then I browned it on a couple of the edges. And let me tell you, it was as good as, Brentwood corn that we get in California during the season in July. The Brentwood corn comes in and it's amazing. But this corn we got at Costco that's already cut, husked, everything was probably 90% as good as the regular Brentwood corn. So if you're living somewhere where you can't get fresh California corn or whatever fresh corn there is in your region, go to Costco, give it a try. That stuff's pretty good, and put it on the barbecue and spin it around, brown it up. And we were pretty happy. We all ate it. It was all gone by the end of it.
Yeah.
So that's my barbecue story for today. Daniel, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Matt.
Yep. Good show, guys. Thanks a lot. We'll be back again next week. If you get a chance, go check out the desktop anywhere launch that's happening today. Pre-recording is up on VMware.com, so you can go listen to that and see what it's like. Tweet it out if you want, and we appreciate the support from everyone. Corey Romero will be back with us next week to give us a vExpert report. He's been on vacation, and when he gets back, we'll get that, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks a lot.